Hello.
How's it going?
It's good. How's everyone doing? All right. I feel super duper fortunate for many reasons. I feel very fortunate to have you all here. I feel fortunate to be a great partner of Snowflake, who have been really amazing folks for us as we built the company and built our product. And I feel really, really fortunate that Christian, who is probably the busiest, one of the busiest, maybe top busiest guy this week, took time out of his crazy schedule to be here with us. So please, everyone, thank Christian for being here. I sent Christian a list of questions and I said, we will realistically not get through all of these. So we'll see how far we get. I'll ask him questions until I run out of good ones or we run out of time, but we'll also try to open it up to some audience questions as we go. Sound good?
Sounds great. Super happy to be here.
Thank you. Okay. I want to start, let me pull up my notes. I assume most people don't know, they think of you as Mr. Snowflake, but you had a long and really interesting career before that. So I would love to hear a little bit about your background and what brought you to Snowflake, because you weren't necessarily a databases guy before this, right? A little bit?
No, I sort of was.
Okay.
Without rewinding too much, very early on, I did 2 startups. Nowhere near as successful as Hex. Actually, total failures. I learned a lot.
You learn a lot from the creators. Sometimes.
Yeah, like it was terrible, but I know what not to do. Then at some point I was like, this whole thing of building a company is too hard. I want to learn from the people that really know. This is 99. Microsoft was at a high moment. I'm like, I want to go learn from Microsoft, join Microsoft. And I had already, both companies had been building on SQL Server. So I was a huge fan of databases. That's why I wanted to go work in SQL Server. And they kept telling me, you should go work in Internet Explorer, which is the hot thing. I'm like, no, I want SQL Server. And I actually got myself into SQL Server. I did the whole career doing product, ran product for the relational engine for SQL Server. At some point, we did appliances when appliances was the thing to do. It started many of the cloud services on what became Azure. At the time, it was called Live Cloud and other types of stuff like that. Ran all data warehousing products. And then I went to Google, where I was responsible for YouTube's infrastructure, but a big part of it was the data infrastructure. This is 2013. YouTube was ingesting north of a petabyte of data a day. And how do you deal with that? And it was very interesting because as a technology vendor, you say a lot of things like, oh, yeah, a single version of the truth. It's very different as a practitioner when you say, oh, I have 5 dashboards and they all say different things. So I got to see both the infrastructure part of it, but also the practitioner. And then I ended up at Snowflake.
What was Snowflake like when you got, what year did you join?
2018, technically. Okay. January 2018, like the very first day or something.
What was kind of the state of the world in 2018?
Company was 300 something employees. I don't think we were making $50 million of revenue. It was like maybe 100 million ARR, something like that. Soon there were a bunch of people at Google like, what's Snowflake? That nobody knows. It's not going to be as big as anyone thinks. He didn't say, but it sounded like loser for going there. It was very early on. I remember it was like, it's so cool after Microsoft and Google. I want to go to a smaller company. I made a purposeful decision I want to meet everyone. So if I was in the kitchen and I have not met one of the employees, I wanted to say hi and know everyone. And I think for a small period of time, it was almost true, but then hiring just got crazy and it was impossible.
Thinking between then and now, we'll get to AI later, but I'm not talking about AI for a moment. What's the thing you're most proud of in that time? You joined at 300. It's whatever, crazy thousands of people now. Like what's the thing you look back at that you feel like was the most impactful, or the thing you're most proud of that you did during the time?
It's a collection of things. Just keeping up with the growth. And it sounds like, first world problems. But no, it was crazy complicated. But maybe something that I still believe very blindly in is the whole notion of collaboration and data sharing. It continues to be a big part of the pillar on how we think about creating a partner ecosystem. We evolved it into business logic and applications, and these days about agentic. I didn't say AI.
Found a loophole.
But I think that may be a single thing where I was very personally involved. I wrote the first data sharing spec because also there were like 3 PMs. So I wrote a spec, and after I had been running big teams at both Microsoft and Google, I wrote the first rebate spec. I first data, the reader accounts, all of that. It was me building it. So maybe because I had that personal conviction, I have fond memories. But there was all sorts of things about the platform.
Was that the last spec you've written?
Spec, yes. There were a lot of concept documents early on. Like these days, the semantic views are the hot thing. I have a document from like early 2019 on this is what we need a semantic construct, and I held the use cases. It was a 1-pager, but I can still look at it and it was right. It just took too long.
I feel that way sometimes. I've sometimes dug through our docs and been like, I wrote this years ago. Why haven't we done it yet? But you get busy. I'm curious, across the span of your career, what's the biggest lesson you feel like you've learned and internalized about building products? Like there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of companies building products, very few that build truly great and enduring products. And you've been part of a bunch of them. There's at least 3 businesses you've been part of now that have made like generationally impactful products. What have you learned, or what do you believe to be true now after all of that experience?
I think that the high level answer would be to be able to empathize with the user of the product.
That sounds so obvious, though. Like it shouldn't, but it's true. I mean, very few people do it.
I was going to say that's the high level, but the true way to do it is you have to be a user of the product. Like I even to this day, I use Snowflake for things that I should not be using Snowflake for. Like this is embarrassing, but my wine cellar at home runs on Snowflake.
Raise your hand here if your wine cellar at home runs on Snowflake. Someone back there, yeah.
Oh,
I assume everyone else here runs their wine cellars at home on other databases. I know, Alex, yours runs on Crunchy Data, so now it's part of the family, yeah.
And then again, I do it mostly because I get to truly build something purposeful. It's very different when you're trying to do a demo or just, I sort of understand it. I was using our REST API. This is like a year ago. I spent maybe 10 hours and I could not get more than 2 pages of results to get returned. And I can have that visceral understanding of the product, which gets you to empathize and understanding. So I would say the simple answer is use the product, but use the product not in I clicked on a couple of things and I think I know it. No, use it in the way that it's intended. I think that changes a lot of the appreciation.
But I think it's great advice. I also think it's really simple advice. And I think there's a lot of product people and a lot of companies that don't do that. Why do you think that's hard for people? I mean,
So I even have issues within my current team where I always assume that, if you're a great product manager, you're using the product. Turns out that at some point you scale to a large enough team that some people never use the product. So
I do strategy. That's the thing you hear sometimes.
Yeah, so the good news is that I also have the data science team. So now they give me reports on who is using the product.
That's good.
True story.
That's good. And then what you're going to get now is a bunch of PMs that just click around in the product to make sure that the logs show that they're doing it.
No, and then that's where my point was on true empathy is the harder piece. Using for the sake of using, But if you're supposed to build something, go build something. If you're going to use hacks for conducting an analysis, find the problem and use it beginning to end to answer the question. And then you're going to realize what works and what doesn't work as well.
My team knows the days where I am really using the product because I'll file a lot of tickets. I used it to analyze our badge-in data because we were trying to figure out, we were doing a reorganization of our desks in our office. And so I used the product for that and I filed like 5 tickets. And everyone was like, I guess Barry used it for something today.
I paced myself on the number of emails, at least to the same person.
That's good. Okay. Let's get into the big topic. I think a lot of people are thinking and talking about. I want to talk a little bit about AI, artificial intelligence. Um, it was 2 years ago. Summit was the first year that was ever really a thing. There was some machine learning and some data science stuff a year before. What have been the biggest surprises in the last couple of years? A lot's changed. What's surprised you?
I have no problem admitting that I underestimated the potential and impact of AI. One of our board members, Mike Spicer, he started sounding the alarm like 3 years ago. To his credit, he was way ahead of it. He's like, this thing is bigger than the internet. We're like, what are you talking about? And at the time, and maybe it's a little bit before the 2 years ago, in my mind, it was all about creation. It was generative AI. So it's about what can you create? So yeah, you can have a editor that helps you write SQL. That was the main use case that we focused on, which is still a legitimate use case, but
Still useful.
correct. But it was that said, I remember telling him, this is not going to be as impactful to the world of data. That's how naive I was. And then the piece that I missed was the ability to get into understanding, synthesizing, these days reasoning. People use the word thinking, which is a strong word. But that that was not clear 2 years ago. Summit 2 years ago was we do document AI that lets you extract fields from documents. And we have Snowflake container services where you can host your own LLM. At the time, hosting an LLM was like doing inference in a machine learning model. These days is like a fancy cluster, very complex, lots of Python code around it. So the models have gotten really, really advanced. So yeah, completely underestimated the impact and the complexity.
It was also 2 years ago that you had just acquired Neva. And there was a guy, Sridhar, who was hanging around that everyone was wondering what you guys were going to do with him. And now he runs the show. Looking back, I appreciate you sharing that, by the way, because I think that's not uncommon. And you've been part of amazing businesses, including businesses that have done, Google had a lot with machine learning even when you left. Is there something that you feel like you learned from that experience of being surprised by that or along the way? Like, is there a way to generalize the takeaway?
That's a good question. Maybe it's hard because not frequently this type of sea changes happen, but have maybe a little bit more of a curious mind. And I say it with reluctance because I'm very curious. I want to know everything. And I went deep on all this AI thing and like, yeah, it's just for generating SQL.
It was at the time. I mean, I think this was interesting. Like we were playing with it really early. One of our engineers, Hack Week 2022 in April, before ChatGPT, we built a thing that used the GPT-3. We had like early access to the API. And that's what it was useful at the time. And I think I look back myself, and I think a lot of people, very few people at the time are like, oh, agents are going to happen. Like, if anyone says that, they're probably full of something. But it's like if you extrapolate the lines a little bit, maybe it's clearer. Is there anything you're looking at today where you're like unclear if you extrapolate where it goes, or maybe that the same thing of like a limitation today that you're wondering, will that be always the case?
No, there are lots of things that today are very fuzzy in my mind, which is everyone is now an agent platform, or at least
funny how that happens. Yeah, everyone does agents now.
And because nobody wants to be a silo now, everyone's agents could potentially talk to everyone else's agents. And everyone then goes and repeats MCP and A2A, and we're all buzzword compliant.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. With buzzwords that were invented single digit numbers of months ago.
Correct. So, but the reality is, yeah, you can see that there's going to be next generation workflows, next generation chains of operations. There's going to be interoperability between the systems. I was at a dinner last night and someone was talking about, oh, you remember WSDL? Anyone remember the verse WSDL? Yeah. It's how soap services used to you discover soap services. And that's a similar thing. Hey, what can I do with you? And then there's a standard calling convention. I think some of those things are going to get reincarnated into what agents do you know about, and how do I invoke your agent, and how do I know what you can do, which is literally this MCP type of protocol. So there's a lot that is going to evolve. At this point, I'm very careful making any predictions on AI and how things play because it's moving very fast. But the thing that is most interesting to me right now is the technology right now is way more capable than what most people are already using.
Yeah,
and that's the opportunity.
The current state of models today could freeze, and we have years of innovation ahead on what's possible with
Correct.
It, for sure.
100%.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. People are, and I think it's an interesting point you just made on people rediscovering things. It's like all people are excited about MCP. It's like, oh, services can talk to each other. It's like, yeah, it's
called APIs.
Yeah, that's right. And people are going to have to rediscover a bunch of security stuff around it too, it turns out. So you just said you're careful on making predictions, which I appreciate and I think is correct. However, I will ask you to maybe gaze a little bit into the future. The landscape is...
I predict Hex is going to be a great company.
Hey, there we go. We can all agree on that one. Yeah, that's right. You heard it. You heard it here first. The landscape, the AI landscape is very complicated right now. You have the big tectonic plates, the big continents, you know, the OpenAIs, the Googles, you have the other labs. You guys yourselves have partner, and I think you guys are actually in a fascinating position amongst this web where you partner at the infrastructure layer with the clouds, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And then you're partnering with model providers, a number of model providers now, including the two largest proprietary, well, standalone proprietary labs, OpenAI and Anthropic, where we can now use those models via Cortex, which is awesome. How do you see this all shifting? Like, where maybe not gazing years into the future, maybe just a year from now, how will we best understand who's doing what? Because just to put a finer point on it, you can look at OpenAI and say they're a multi hundreds of millions of dollars API service business. You can also look at them and say they're a multi-hundreds of millions of dollars consumer internet business. You can say they're the largest competitor to probably 3 or 4 different companies that do completely different things. And you guys yourselves have an inference provider, you partner with them. How does this all, how should we all understand the shape of the map over the next couple of years?
It's for sure complicated. And whatever I say might change a couple of months from now. I think one thing is clearer is that pure play model companies are not viable. The way the models monetize is through the application of the models and the experiences. OpenAI's money comes from ChatGPT. I think it's still at 65% of the revenue is that. More so than pure API, because that is trending towards A, commodity, and B, pricing wise, semi-race to the bottom. Not all the way zero, but that's where it trends. But the application of it is replacing entire industries. In many ways, Google search itself, which is a formidable franchise, very profitable franchise, and it's getting threatened. So application and moving up for the model providers, I think that's how it happens. All of them either will build and buy apps, or they'll get acquired by an apps company, like an application of AI. In the enterprise world, I think everything will run around enterprise data. Like, yes, there are some use cases for ChatGPT for the enterprise, and OpenAI is selling it incredibly aggressively, and I think they're getting traction. But the true value is when it can understand enterprise data. And enterprise data, as many people have realized in the last couple of months, is everything is easy until things like security and compliance and governance kick in. And that's where I think ourselves and even Databricks and even the cloud providers are in a good position, because we have become trusted custodians of data. And I think what we're trying to do, which is bringing AI and building value on top of AI while preserving and respecting the governance, is an opportunity for us.
I agree. Looking at some layers of this, there's so many interesting things to talk about. I want to ask you about something. I've asked you about this privately, and I've always loved, and I've even parroted the response you've given me. you talk about being custodians of data. There's an interesting dynamic happening around where data lives and the format it's stored in. And I think Iceberg and open file formats are such a fascinating thing. On the surface, you can look at it and say, this is net bad or somehow negative for the warehouse, where people who provide. Snowflake does many things now, among them warehousing.
It's okay if you call us a warehouse. He was trying hard.
No one
not
from
to.
Snowflake Marketing is here, right? The data and AI cloud trademark. We get our hands slapped sometimes. That, hey, if customers can manage their data via open file formats, if they can kind of make query engines compete, you can kind of imagine a world where that's not negative. But you guys have leaned into this super duper hard. Like you were in some ways talking about Iceberg before it was cool. In some ways, somebody call you an Iceberg hipster even.
I didn't hear that.
Christian Kleinerman, Iceberg hipster. And which I think is really interesting. And I think you at Snowflake, it strikes me have a very interesting point of view on this. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about this. Why is this something you guys have leaned in so hard on? And how do you think about your relationship to this sort of trend and where this is going?
At the end of the day, there's only one very easy reason, which is this is what customers want. And you can choose to battle your customers, and it might work for some period of time, but it doesn't work in the long run. At the end of the day, many companies have been burned or are still in the process of burning from being locked into a bunch of proprietary technology. You want people using your technology and handing you dollars because they get value out of it, not because getting out of it is too painful. And in some ways, for many of those customers, when Snowflake was introduced, what we were doing was so much better than any other alternative that, hey, we'll happily go and use your format, and everything was proprietary. But in parallel, the Hadoop type of movement evolved into, you can have the capabilities of Snowflake with open data, which is a much better world from a customer perspective. So if that's better for customers and there's no true market alternative or market differentiator that would be dramatically better. If we could still be maybe, 1,000 times faster than the competition, probably we could say we're going to delay leaning into Iceberg for a little bit. But when things start to get good enough, that's when you need to be very clear. This is what customers want. Go help them succeed. And we are wholehearted leaning into Iceberg. We also have confidence that our technology is better than Databricks and others. So yes, Iceberg is negative, quote unquote, because it levels the playing field, makes it easier to switch between vendors, which is exactly what customers want. But I tell customers, feel free to run a POC for every workload between us and anyone else you want. If we're not better, feel free to give it to someone else. But if we're better, you give it to us. And we all believe that everyone hopes that they're going to get a disproportionate share of it. It's fine.
I find this very unusual, that approach. And I think, I know everyone in here is probably at some level a Snowflake customer. Someone described it to me one time, if we don't slash our throat, someone else will. And I think it's true. I think that being on the forefront of that and earning dollars by building a better service there's a short-term high you can get, but I applaud you for that. I think that's really cool.
I lived the reaction to both Teradata and Oracle to a degree, and I do not want to be in that list.
Yeah, that's a good point.
One
clapping, person applauding. That's all right. Yeah. One of the implications of this, that sometimes when I'm at a conference like this, I talk to a lot of customers, talk to a lot of Snowflake people. I also wind up talking to a lot of other CEOs of other data companies that also partner with Snowflake. And one of the implications of this is, hey, you guys want to provide a better service and more wraparound. And I won't, you're not, quote unquote, locking people with a proprietary format, but there's other things you want to provide them around the query engine that's, was the kind of core of the company that you came to Snowflake on. And there's always an interesting question around partner ecosystem. You guys partner with a lot of companies. You're great partners of ours. You also build a lot of stuff that overlaps with some partners. I actually wonder if there's a partner in that entire hall that doesn't have some overlap with something you're doing these days. How do you think about that? Like, and I want to connect this back to something I alluded to earlier that you and I have talked about before, which is that's also true for you guys. You run on AWS, you run on Azure, you run on Google. All of those companies have large warehousing franchises and other things besides. What's that dynamic like? How do you think about that? And do you think that's changing as you guys feel like you need to do more?
So the world of tech partnerships is incredibly complicated, but it's not a new thing. Go look at IBM in the old days, Microsoft in the old days. AWS famously was like, which companies are going to die in this reinvent? That was the thing. They announced something and entire categories of companies would be in trouble. The way I think about it is, as long as we are very clear and transparent with our partners on where we intend to go, where do we think we're going to draw some lines, where we can go and say, here's where we end and here's where there's an opportunity for you. And there's enough time for partners, which hopefully are smaller and more nimble than we are, then there's an adjustment. I got this perspective was when I was at Microsoft. We used to run this worldwide partner conference. When I was there, it was 50,000 attendees. So 2.5 times what we did here at Summit. That was the partner conference at Microsoft. I asked someone in a meeting yesterday, is this still happening? And they told me, yes, it's still one of the largest events Microsoft puts together. And Microsoft competes with everyone and anyone under the sun. So but I think there was that religion from the folks that were running partners at the time. Let's just make sure that we are clear on our intent in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and then let partners make sure that we figure out how to adjust. I also think that there's a philosophy on, as long as there's maybe APIs for extensibility, APIs for plugging in other products, other things, you can do it. So I do believe in you heard the, what is it? If you go alone, you'll get, what is it?
You want to go fast, go it alone. If you want to go far, go it together.
Exactly. Like and I truly believe it. Go look at that Partner Expo Hall. There is no way we Snowflake can do a fraction of the capabilities in that room. And yet, yes, there's a decent amount of overlap there. I know of one CEO of one startup that right now is very unhappy with us. I think we failed to set expectations ahead of the conference on how we're thinking about it, how we're going to overlap, where there's an opportunity. I'm going to go and try to make it better.
I think I might know who it is.
That I'm not going to comment.
Okay.
Not intentional. Like my design point would have been, there should be no surprises at the conference.
Yeah, we've had these conversations for years, and I think that's been very true for us. Is there anything you guys have talked about or you think about at Snowflake that you don't want to do? I mean, I assume you're not going to like launch a consumer product, but like,
why not?
You heard it here first. Yeah. But is there anything you guys think of, you're like, that's just a market that's wholly uninteresting to us? Consoles?
No, I well, that one for sure. I think it's more, what do you want to do in what period of time? And it's very easy to be overly ambitious and spread yourself too thin and then be good at nothing. So it's less over time we're going to do everything. No, I don't think that's needed. The way I was in our customer council earlier today, and what I said is, there's all sorts of things. An example, graph databases. I would much rather make sure that the use case is served by great partners that are tightly integrated. I called out Relational AI and Neo4j.
They're both great.
And if the integration with us is good, why would I ever get in that space? The only instance where we may want to go and do something is if there's something that those partnerships are not fulfilling, and from a customer perspective, is like, you don't have a graph database. Like that, there's maybe 100 categories. So if you think about it, we do a lot, but again, walk the expo hall and you're going to see we do very little. There's plenty of room for others, but the integration has to be seamless. Also, something that sometimes gets in the way is partners trying to aggressively monetize what they have. So this is not true, but imagine the relational AI decided they're only interested in the, I don't know, 100 largest companies in the world, and they price it appropriately. That counts as the broad Snowflake customer base is not being served, and that would be a problem. Which there's precedence of that, especially in the traditional database world.
I've a lot of questions, but I'll move on and want to make sure we have some time for audience questions. So I'll just ask a couple more questions, then we'll open it up. You mentioned you were at your customer council earlier. I know you talk to customers a lot, especially this week.
Every week, but this week more.
Yeah, it's very intense. What's something you've heard from a customer recently that surprised you or changed your mind? Or something you learned?
Well, there's something we were thinking about in the last few weeks, but holy cow, is it alive here? Which is a lot of people bought AI model capacity, and they don't yet know how to use that capacity. And they would love to be able to plug in their own models, their own keys into Cortex to drive that capacity. I think I've heard it like 8
model
times.
capacity from the labs?
OpenAI and Anthropic primarily. But I think 8 times today. And then these are like some of the largest companies in the world. They're like, I have $10 million that I am not using. I would love to use Cortex.
It's funny. It just goes back to like there's this sort of like circle of life or feeding chain or whatever. Because we hear that from Snowflake customers who have bought a lot of Snowflake credits and they want to burn it down with X. So
yeah, that's why we did the whole MCP thing or MCD. Where's Sophie? MCD. Yeah, MCD.
That's cool. What is something you're excited about in the world of AI outside of data, or maybe I'll just like zoom even further out, like outside of sort of like the Snowflake remit that is really interesting or exciting to you right now?
Did everyone attend the keynote on Tuesday? Yeah. Did you hear the opening music score? That was half generated by AI.
Half generated by AI.
Also, so we will release a documentary on this thing, but we told the composer, it was composed for that moment in the keynote. And we gave him it has to be inspired by Snow is Falling, etc. But we told him, use AI for it. I would have not thought of it. But yeah, he was feeding scores and chords and say, what sequence of chords would be, make it dramatic or would make it sad or something like that. And who knew it? ChatGPT understands music better than a lot of other things. All of this to say that I think there's a creative aspect to it that was amazing, that is completely untapped. What the director was telling me was half of the suggestions were horrible, but half of it was amazing. But now you have this creative partner that you can just brainstorm, and outside of work, outside of anything, it's so cool to me. It's true for art. It's true for a lot of things.
Beyond managing your wine cellar, is there any other use cases you are really excited about in your personal life?
That's a good question. Actually, I started using Cortex to do some bottle labeling, and there's some. I tried to use the product, so it's the most expensive and most over-designed and overbuilt app. But the goal is not to manage the wine; the goal is to use Snowflake.
Okay, I said outside of your wines.
No, I think that the big thing that I'm super curious about is the productivity improvements that are coming. I'm excited from the economy grows, the world gets better when productivity goes up. But I'm also back to the models are ahead of capability. If the capability or the application of models catch up, there may be a truly painful state of the world for a lot of people. If you hear what Sam Altman was saying on Monday, it's like, yeah, it's like a entry-level employee, but it's going to get better over time. I met with someone here at Summit in the last 48 hours that told me the entire call center team in India is not getting renewed because the current tests with AI agents are better. This is not like someone became 20% more productive. This is an entire team that's going to disappear. So that thing gives me anxiety. It gives me hope in some way. But for example, I have young kids. What should they study?
Yeah, right.
It's a hard question, and the thing is that these improvements are going to apply everywhere. My 11-year-old is already saying AI is bad because people lose jobs. And like, this is a true story. So I think a lot about that part, the social, the economic, the impact is it's good, but we need to be careful that it doesn't turn into a really negative thing.
Well,
I got very deep and philosophical.
No, I mean, I think it's really profound. I think about this for my kids are younger than yours, but I think about they're gonna have driver's licenses. You know, like my primary mode of transportation around town now is Waymo. It's like, so it's interesting, and a lot of second and third order effects that we're just starting to understand. Okay, I'm gonna open it up for folks to ask Christian some questions. And just like at Hex All Hands, if we don't get any questions, we'll just sit here awkwardly in silence until someone liberates us.
Does that ever happen?
Yeah, sure. Like we're big enough now that when we have all hands on Zoom, I'm like, great, any questions? And then, you know, there's like 3 or 4 people at Hex who reliably will just, you know, jump in. But yeah, we'll sit there in silence sometimes, and it's, you know, it's uncomfortable for everyone else. I'm fine with it.
Okay, ask questions. Otherwise, we got a
question. We got a first question over here. So, Jess, you want to hand the mic? Great, thank you.
Hi, Christian. I'm sure a lot of customers are cost conscious these days. It has become a pattern now. A lot of the ISVs on the Basecamp, partners on the Basecamp are focusing on how to optimize Snowflake costs. So what is Snowflake doing to this end? Is there like out-of-the-box solution or an inbuilt solution within Snowflake which is addressing some of the concerns that customer has, because Snowflake cost has gone, they're going high, as the usage becomes more. And the second question that I have is semantic model. There's been a lot of discussions around semantic model. I know Snowflake does not have an inbuilt semantic model today. What is the, like a near-term solution for the semantic model? So I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
You did not attend the keynote on Tuesday, right?
I did not attend the keynote.
We have some exciting news for you, my friend.
I did not.
Oh, it's a whole section on cost management, a whole section on semantic.
Welcome to Snowflake Summit. I see you've got a badge on there.
You don't work for Databricks, right?
I don't.
It's a spy. Yeah. Just curious, what's your roadmap maybe over like the next, I don't know, like 2 years?
I'm ignorant. I just came into the summit today. I was supposed to come on Monday.
Totally fine.
Well, they have a great semantic model solution now that we're integrating with.
No, but is that both were covered in the keynote? One, cost management is a priority for us. We've added all sorts of controls, all sorts of monitoring solutions for people to better optimize their use of Snowflake. No one at Snowflake wants a customer to pay $1 to us that they're not getting $1 of value, or way more than $1. Otherwise, you're breaking even. Zero interest. We announce consumption views, visibility across regions, across clouds. Something that we announced something I'm excited about, which is spend anomalies. We are forecasting for each one of our customers what their spend should be. And if it falls out of some range, we will trigger an alert. So lots of capabilities, budgets. We announce object tags, query tags, so that you can go and take a workload and associate it with some reporting structure. You can say, this is the trend of this tag, or this cost center is the use case. Is it going up or going down? And I'm delighted that there's a lot of partners helping optimize Snowflake spend. I definitely don't want anyone paying more than they need to. And we introduced semantic views as a way to capture, store a semantic model. And I am told that Hex is an amazing early adopter.
That's what I hear as well.
I heard that in the keynote.
Thank you for that. You said us first. I like that. Other questions? Maybe from someone who attended the keynote. I'm sorry. I had to.
Thanks.
Hi, John.
Oh, I'd love to know your thoughts on maybe the story beats that a small company that adopts either Hex or Snowflake early on, and then it grows with them, may go through. So, we got it at half the size that we are currently. DBT was a massive addition to like scaling up we were doing, but I don't know, the next 2x, 10x growth, what are the kinds of things that you see customers do with their Snowflake instances?
So the thing that I like the most about Snowflake, well, I like lots of things, but I like is the exact same product works for a 2-person startup with no data or almost no data, and same works for JP Morgan with however millions of people they have, or I don't know how many, hundreds of thousands. And we have capabilities to help scale through that process, from a small compute cluster to large multi-cluster warehouses, et cetera. So I think that we've always built for that continuum. And if there's anything you have ideas on how we could make it easier to keep scaling, let us know. But COVID was super cool from a Snowflake perspective, because
COVID was super cool. Yeah, that's
from a Snowflake perspective, because let me finish.
I don't know if those
Edit
those
the clip.
4 words have ever been said.
Yeah, you can edit the clip and like, what is this guy talking about?
Christian Kleinerman.
No, we saw the Instacarts of the world like go 5x in volume overnight. And they told us many parts of their infrastructure fell apart, and Snowflake was like, yep, bring it on. So that level of scalability is a good story. Anything else you want to add?
This is the promise of the cloud, the sort of elastic scaling.
Well, built for the cloud, meaning truly leveraging the cloud.
Yeah.
Because not everything on the cloud is built for the cloud.
You heard it here first. Actually, you did not hear that here first. They've been saying that for years. What I don't know, for us, we have lots of small companies adopt techs and grow over time. We're much more at the application layer. As you wind up with tons of requirements as companies grow around permissions, security, organization, and all of that. And we're just do our best to build all of that and do a great job with it. A lot of us had worked at companies that had actually sold to much, much larger enterprises. So we always sort of knew what that was like and try to get ahead as much as we can. A lot of our customers, including a lot of folks here, are great at pushing us on the next set of stuff. So lots of story beats I could tell you about sometime. Who else?
Cool. Thank you. So the next big phase for AI seems to be embodied AI and the push to the physical world with larger data rates, larger data sets, really trying to push all of our infrastructure. How are you thinking about continuing to innovate to help support this push? And do you feel like you can be an external observer, or do you have to feel the pain directly to really understand how to really help embodied AI grow?
That's addressed at you.
It's addressed to me. I doubt it. So should we expect Snowflake robots soon? I don't know. I find some of the like theme park mascots going around Moscone terrifying as is with humans in them. Please don't have those be robots next year. You thought they were robots all along.
Yeah.
Maybe they were. Maybe that was like a surprise. Yeah.
It's AI.
So, yeah.
I think that the whole story of Snowflake since forever has been, how do we help people cope with larger and larger volumes of data and be able to process it, distill it, understand it. So if anything, it's very similar to the answer to your question, which is what made Snowflake a lot of what it is just that ability to scale to tremendous volumes of data, number of users, number of compute resources.
I saw a demo recently of a physical robot running a model and running in real time, and it absolutely blew my mind. I think that stuff's going to happen really fast.
Can they do it in a bear suit?
I'm sure they would help you out with that if you asked. It strikes me they're looking for customers. So who else? Good time for one or two more. Yeah.
I also have a question about robots. Not really.
Hell yeah. No, not really. That's really disappointing.
Robots.txt?
Yeah. So, when I come to this conference and see all the new capabilities that are being built out in the cloud and data engineering features, and they all sound great. And, sometimes something that I'll hear in those talks is like, you just need to write SQL to deploy this. And even from like a slightly larger company, on like the engineering infrastructure side, that to me at first just sounds scary. And so you were just talking about how like these solutions, work for both small companies and huge companies. I guess, how do you think about that, taking what sometimes are more onerous like infrastructure tasks and making them so easy?
Yeah, so that's a reflection that, for better or for worse, most of us that were there in the beginning, including our founders, all of us are database people, which is why I do think of myself as database. And if you want to get me excited, show me a new SQL feature. But we also acknowledge that there are many areas where you may want either Python APIs or REST APIs directly. We have been increasing the number of areas of the product that can be configured with both Python and REST, but many of them still get bootstrapped with SQL.
Cool. We have time for one more quick one. Yeah. Thank
you. Good to see you, CK. I'm at my second startup now, with building and deploying content applications on Snowflake. Love working with the ecosystem. Did a little stint at Snowflake in between for 3 years. But my question for you is, as a startup, we're not nearly as large as Hex, DBT. What advice, what recommendations would you have to gain more traction with the sales force, with product, just trying to help, generate our story alongside you?
My answer for many years had been, or has been, but I've refined it now, which is, it used to be, if you're driving consumption, our sales team will find you. And that continues to be true. But I think now I refined it to clarity on the use case. You need to be able to guide our sales team. This is the probing question. Dear customers, do you have this need? Or let me help you with this need. This is how you do it. And then hopefully drives consumption on the other end. Just consumption on its own is a little bit too mechanical. It still matters a lot, because effectively what you want to do is tap into our sales team. And our sales team has only one goal, which is hit their numbers, big contracts or consumption. So that's one piece, but I think the clarity on the use cases, effectively what is the sales play, that has proven to be almost more impactful than pure consumption.
I'm on the other side of this. I agree with that wholeheartedly. The other thing I found is Christian and other leadership at Snowflake over time had been really great at providing top-down energy, and it was very useful as we built relationships. But a lot of that was actually in response to bottoms-up energy. And I think sometimes you model a large sales force like Snowflake's is like, oh, great, like Christian or whoever the power that be will like tell everyone, like, push this product. They have a lot of reps who are really busy and they got a lot going on. And we found it to be really, really helpful going bottoms up, kind of running insurgency, honestly, and having those success stories where we could go to the next AE and say, hey, this guy or gal made money with us together by bringing this use case into this customer. We could show them a slide. You get their attention. I actually think the like bottoms up attention is way more valuable than some top down remit. So that would be my advice.
Thank you both very much. Appreciate it.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you again. This is an extremely busy week. It is really meaningful for you to take the time out of your day and your week to be here. It is very meaningful to me that you went out of your way to wear an on-brand color shirt.
Oh, that's your color? No, it's that orange thing. Oh.
Actually, it's looking great. I'm sure I speak for everyone. I thank you for sharing such candid thoughts and feedback with everyone. And thanks for being a great partner.
No, I would emphasize we do love the partnership and relationship with Hex. I truly appreciate the personal relationship with Barry on the good, the bad, and the ugly. We talk it over. No, there's rough moments, like to be very clear, and having the ability to say, "Hey, I'm not happy about this," or "We need to do better here." That's the foundation of a good partnership. I think we have an amazing thing going on together. I'm a huge fan of the Hex technology and look forward to continuing to partner. I'm very happy to have spent the time here. Hope it was useful to all of you.
Thank you, Christian.